Today is a day like any other, but it's a weird day, because we're all thinking the same thing. Game Freak really isn't the best development studio. Full stop, hands down, whether you view them as victims or abusers of the system. I'm sure many of you view my channel as a primarily Pokemon channel, and that's fair. I do make a lot of Pokemon content, but if you've been here for a while, you know that I'm not afraid to express criticism where it's due. Of course, I much prefer the moments where I can exude praise and celebrate credit where it's due, and Game Freak has earned that as well in recent years a couple times. We've seen strokes of genius here and there from them since their transition to 3D, even if most of their modern console ventures have been subpar. Pokemon Legends Arceus is universally loved, polished, and welcomely experimental, blending action and turn-based elements flawlessly in honestly rare ways not seen in gaming. Off the top of my head, Final Fantasy and Clair Obscur are the other two rare instances I can think of attempting to blend the two genres. And Pokemon Legends EA looks to take this even further towards the action side of things with its new combat. And the game visually looks pretty good. We've also finally gotten to see Scarlet and Violet run in a smooth 60 FPS and 4K resolution with its new free update on Switch 2. The game is utterly and epically transformed to an actual functioning title worth playing now. That makes 3 wins for Game Freak in the last 3 years, even if we've had plenty of losses along the way. The wins are relatively new, but there's one more thing lined up that we can discuss today that shows the potential of Game Freak, and maybe even the Pokemon series moving forward on Switch 2. Game Freak has revealed a trailer to a new current-gen game called Beast of Reincarnation. Now, I'm excited for this in more ways than the implications of Pokemon. I'm a huge fan of action games. Beast of Reincarnation looks like Game Freak embracing their newfound passion for creating, well, action titles and taking it all the way. The combat looks sleek and even pretty innovative. Your character controls plant life and can use it to give themselves platforms for performing aerial attacks, creating bridges and skywalks to gain elevation, and even giving themselves extended range to land attacks. These creative applications show that Game Freak is becoming more than what we've seen in the past. By far the most exciting one of these to me is the clip of the character using her vines to create a path through the air. That's so freaking cool. I'm also a big fan of how parrying looks like it will feel like Clair Obscur's parrying. Good vibes, man. But I know the biggest thing on everyone's mind, it's not the combat or the intriguing story. No. It's the fact that this game looks pretty dang gorgeous. Now, it's not the pinnacle of visual fidelity or anything, and the frame rate definitely still looks very choppy in some of the footage, but compared to anything we've seen from Game Freak, the level of detail and care put into the visuals here is miles of difference. There are a couple factors feeding into this. Clearly, the portion of Game Freak members working on this title are the more experienced developers. Whether they're experienced new hires, or maybe some of the longtime veterans from Game Freak, that's TBD. The team that coded Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, for example, could never craft this, even with ample time. The new generational titles for Pokemon, for some reason, are always delegated to the newbie developers who've not really made games before. And it shows. But going back a bit, the other factor to why this game looks so much better is something that I kinda just mentioned. It's arguably the most important factor, actually. Time. More time to develop. We've all grown privy to Game Freak's increasingly restrained development schedules forced upon them by the Pokemon Company, likely to keep up with merchandising and a fast-paced anime series. We also know that Game Freak has been fighting a lot lately to have more time to develop all their games. They got a taste of it with Pokemon Legends Arceus when the pandemic delayed it a few months, and that turned out to be their most polished Switch 1 game. Now we're seeing them have an extra year to develop Pokemon Legends EA, as we saw no release from them in 2024. The first year off of releasing something for mainline Pokemon in over half a decade. Actually, maybe even over a decade. It's hard to keep track. Releases go brr though, okay? All this extra time to develop. You know, the usual amount of development time it takes to code a game. It shows. We can see it clear as day here. If Game Freak of all people can make a game that looks like this in a normal development schedule, they could arguably do the same with Pokemon. Now, yes, Pokemon has also been releasing on weaker hardware than what Beasts of Reincarnation is releasing on. Beasts is coming out for PS5, Xbox Series S, and PC, while Pokemon has been relegated to Switch 1 until now. However, don't make me bring up the endless plethora of comparisons I could make for Pokemon running on Switch 1 versus other Switch 1 titles like, I don't know, anything Zelda, Mario, Xenoblade, and whatever else we can think of. Obviously, even with the Switch 1's capabilities, Pokemon games still looked and ran subpar. And again, that was mostly thanks to inexperienced developers and a lack of development time. A nasty combo. But now Pokemon will be on Switch 2 moving forward. Now, I'm not saying we want it to look as realistic as Beasts of Reincarnation. Unless Game Freak wants to make a really adult Pokemon game, likely in the Legends series if they were to ever do that, this realistic art style certainly just wouldn't fit the franchise. However, it can look as detailed as Beasts of Reincarnation if Game Freak puts the right people in charge of the games and gets the proper amount of time to develop. There's no reason why we couldn't see Pokemon look like a cartoonified version of Beasts of Reincarnation. Keep the movement physics, remove any unnecessary detail, slap some cell shading on it, and bam, you have a lovable, thematically fitting art style for a current-gen Pokemon game. Heck, even in Beasts of Reincarnation, we can't get away from the Pokemon-like aspects. The focus on the creatures in this trailer is pretty high, whether they be friend or foe. Our wolf companion, for example, could be a great template for Pokemon behavior alongside our main character in future games, aiding us and reacting to events in a similar, more immersive manner. All this is to say, Beasts of Reincarnation looks really cool. I'm looking forward to it as an action game fan, and even on top of all that, it gives me a lot of hope for the potential of Pokemon moving forward. We see now what's possible, so let's hope Game Freak and the Pokemon Company are willing to apply these sorts of game details to the world's largest media franchise in the near future. Oh, and let's also hope they don't try to sue every game that's third person with a sword after this. Just saying. Anyways, comment below if you feel the same way about Beasts of Reincarnation and the future of Pokemon. I'm curious to hear everyone's thoughts, and we can all talk about it together. Afterwards, check out more of my videos like this one here, where I discuss the graphics of Pokemon games, and especially the graphics of Legends EA. If you want to have your name featured at the end of all of my videos and want to support me, please feel free to join my Patreon with the link in front of you or in the description. I've been JotoJohnny, and I'll catch you all there.